Pride, tradition, excellence. We, the people. We, the Washington Tattoo.
Greetings, I'm Mark Riley, and welcome to the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where the world's musical traditions come to life. The Washington Tattoo is an international music and arts festival coming to the Washington, D.C. metro area. Our podcast explores the lives and stories of world-renowned musicians, dancers, producers, choreographers, artists, educators, arts advocates, and those who serve our cultural communities at large. For more information and donations, find us at www.thewashingtontattoo.com. Now please enjoy this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast, sharing the power of the arts, one story at a time. Greetings and welcome to episode number 3 of the Washington Tattoo Podcast. Today we are going to be interviewing Scott Johnson, Director of Percussion for the Concord Blue Devils Drum and Bugle Corps from California. He first joined the Blue Devils in 1976 and became the organization's Director of Percussion and Percussion Arranger in 1994. Scott has a huge heart. He's always giving. He's an incredible player, and honestly, you're really going to enjoy today's conversation. So folks, please take care and enjoy episode number 3 with Scott Johnson. Oh, Scott, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So first question I love starting out with is that all of us, when we play music, we have kind of this one spark memory that always starts us off in our passion. Do you have one of those like first memories that you can go talk about? Who's your first inspiration?
You know, I've got a few. First of all, I'm the Director of Percussion for Blue Devils, not the Director of the Blue Devils. So I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay, yeah.
Get a phone call from my boss. Hey.
Right.
Some memories, the big inspiration. I grew up in the pageantry world. I had 2 older sisters who twirled baton. So every weekend I was with mom and my sisters. You know, I was too small to stay by myself at the rehearsals or at a parade. So I grew up in the activity, in the marching arts activity. And it was either going to be start twirling a baton or start hitting stuff, because there were also some drummers there, you know. So I started to hang out with the drummers more, and literally, I had my first drum lesson at the age of 4. And my inspiration was watching the older guys who I wanted to be, you know, and it was called the Royal Family, and it was the Red Knights Drum and Bell Corps. And this was glockenspiels back in the day before we got fancy and all that other stuff, right? And they were just the cool guys because they got the, you know, beat up things. And that was a huge inspiration for me to try to get to their level so I could finally put a drum around my body and walk down the street and do the parades. Mm-hmm. The other big inspiration, I was in drum corps since I was 4 years old. And this was I think it was 1972. And the drum corps that I was in the snare line. And we were at a drum corps show in San Jose, California. And San Jose State University had this ramp that came down from the end zone to the football field. And our drum corps was too small to make this show, so it was just the bigger drum corps, you know, the Santa Clara Vanguards back then, and the Anaheim Kingsmen, and I think the Casper Troopers were there, and it was this big thing in California where a lot of groups came from out of state, and we were too small to make to get an invite. So I was sitting in the stands. So I'm in the stands with mom and all my friends, and this 8-person, 12 feet tall snare line comes walking down this ramp, and they took up the entire ramp, and they're just. And back in the days, the Anaheim Kingsman uniform with the big plumes and the shakos and the militaristic. And I remember looking at these guys, and this was Tom Float, Ralph Hardiman, were in the center of the line, which made everybody look 12 feet tall, you know, with those guys in the center. And I just remember grabbing my mom going, that's what I want to do. I want to be that. How do I be that?
I love it.
And that's still, to this day, that's my biggest influence of watching this. And they weren't even drumming. They were just walking. They were just walking down a ramp. But they looked so cool and so badass. I'm going, that's how I want to be those guys. How do I get there? And that's, you know, to this day, that's my biggest memory of the inspiration to try to keep doing what I'm doing to, you know, in the drum corps to get at that level.
Oh, that's incredible. So you've traveled all around the world and you've been teaching all over the place. I mean, when did that start for you? When did you start teaching drum corps?
It's funny. I was teaching when I was in the small drum and bell corps, I was actually teaching guys then that were older than me, which was pretty interesting. I literally got my first teaching job that they actually paid me when I was like 15.
Wow.
Because I could play stuff better than some other guys. So they go, okay, you got to show those guys how to play that. So I kind of became a staff member inside the drum line kind of a thing. But so I've been teaching for obviously a long time. I'm an old man, like you mentioned, longevity. That's why I got all those all those miles, flyer miles, and everything.
I love it.
But it's just something that I've always loved to do. I've always loved to be in front of a drum line. That's why it really hurts this time of year right now, because we should be down in Southern California this weekend, for example. At our drum corps shows, and they don't exist right now. So it's very different not being in front of drum lines, not just the ones that I work with, but just all of them, just the whole performance aspect and seeing everybody play. And it's what I still thoroughly enjoy, is just watching those performers. I've been traveling all over the place teaching. I teach a group in Japan. I've been going over there for 27 years now, I think.
Wow.
Soka Renaissance Vanguard. It's a drum corps. They do everything inside. So I got a lot of frequent flyer miles back and forth to Tokyo. And it's interesting. When I first started there, I mean, to get a clean diddle out of them, a clean roll of any kind didn't exist. They just didn't have the fundamentals. And the interesting thing with that culture is the second year I would come by, I finally got some guys to get some clarity, and we got some things figured out, and guys were doing traditional grip. I show up the next year, and all the snare drummers were on cymbals and bass drums, and the bass drums were on snare, and they just kept rotating every year. And I go, whoa, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We just figured this thing out, and we figured this thing out. And they go, well, we rotate every year. We rotate. And I'm going, that's great for education. I think it's awesome, but do we want to be competitive?
Yeah, right.
So it is different, the places you go around the world. I've done a lot of teaching in Europe too, doing clinics, of course, and all over the U.S. just for drum corps and marching bands and indoor drum lines and all of the above. So
that's awesome.
Very fortunate to travel the world and talk about paradiddles.
Right. So, I mean, with traveling all around, is there a place that you think is kind of like an up and coming marching scene that we should kind of keep an eye out for in the future?
Good question. What WGI has done, the indoor percussion thing, is just blown up. I mean, it's insane what these high school kids are playing now.
Yeah.
I still, I judge that indoor activity. I judge WGI percussion. And I tell everybody I got the best seat in the house, which is why I do it, to be honest, because nobody could sit in front of me, get out of my way. I want to watch this. It's the best seat in the house. I got to talk into a recorder, but other than that, I mean, it's friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
And what they're doing now is crazy. And I do think, because WGI just started the WINS program recently in the last few years, I think that's going to get real big eventually. I really do. I think it's, for smaller marching bands that can get lost on a football field, this gives them a venue to perform in. It's a controlled environment. They don't have to worry about weather to rehearse outside. They can rehearse in their gyms. And, so I do think that that's going to catch on pretty big eventually. And, the thing I don't like about the WINS right now, at least the ones that I've seen, is they don't use a lot of percussion. It's a lot of soundtracks, because they're legal. You could actually use a soundtrack and just have the wind players play. But I do think it's going to evolve into something that's going to be, all the musicians are going to be able to get involved. And I think it's going to be real healthy. So I think that's something that's going to be coming up really soon. Not to mention, hopefully drum corps is going to get back. We're just kind of scratching our heads what's going to happen in the future here. There's not too many high schools or colleges that are going to let a traveling circus stay in their gymnasium for a couple nights, which is where we live during the summer. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here in the future with all this.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, a lot of instructors look up to you. They see your product, they see what you've been able to do with, all the students you've had over the years. Is there something you would say to like a beginning percussion instructor, any kind of advice you would share with them?
Listen to your elders.
Yeah.
I've been blessed with just longevity. I mean, this would have been this is my 41st year with the Blue Devils.
Yep.
I taught 4 years at Santa Clara inside those, so it would have been 45 years doing at that level of drum corps. So, I've been around a long time, and the advice I can give, and I'll relate it back to the first year I was caption head, which was when I was teaching Santa Clara Vanguard, 1991. And it's the first year I was in charge of the music and writing and just controlling everything, as opposed to just being an instructor that took orders from other people. So I had to finally figure that out. And my biggest advice is don't overwrite. And that's from pure experience. The first thing I wrote by myself for the Santa Clara Vanguard 1991 was it was the ballad. That was the first song the horns learned. So I had all of the coolest drum licks in my head that I've ever known that I wanted to get on paper. And here was my chance. I finally got the pencil, I got my score, and I put every lick in the ballad.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
when we played it back, when the performers played it, I remember sitting there listening to it going, yes, yes, yes. Oh my God, this is awesome. This is perfect. And the rest of the staff is going, Scott, what's happening?
Yeah, right.
It's like, what do you mean? They go, just listen.
Yeah, right.
And so I literally had to get out of my own head like I wanted it to sound. Okay, I'll listen to what they're doing. And it was like, oh my God, it was terrible. It was
Wow.
God awful. It was like, okay, less is definitely more, and it was a valuable lesson in my early years of the arranging that I really, it was an eye opener to the point. It's like, oh my God, can I even do this?
Yeah.
I mean, there was no musical theme. It was just lick after lick after lick after lick after in the ballad. So the entire staff's looking at me going, what's up with the new kid?
Yeah, right.
So it's easy to overwrite. You're going to get your moments, from an arranging standpoint. From a teaching standpoint, the biggest thing I could say is try to be consistent. I think that's where we have been extremely successful, with the Blue Devil organization is I don't go through a lot of instructors. We try to get guys that can be with us for years. The joke is if you're on the Blue Devil staff for 10 years, you're a rookie staff member. And it's pretty accurate, to be honest. It really is. There's a bunch of us that have been around for, 20, 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
But the consistency from year to year, from day to day on tour, from rehearsal to rehearsal, to me is huge. If you get that same information and just keep building on the same information, as opposed to a completely different year the next year from different instructors and, changing in and out. I know a lot of people, they'll fly in different instructors during the tour. Like, they'll have 5 to 10 snare techs, that'll come in.
Right.
I have 2, and usually one guy's there all the time. The other guy comes in every now and then to help out, and I think it's been a big part of our success is just the consistency.
Yeah,
And the
that's
approach
great.
and, the terminology that we use.
Yeah, that's great. So this can be as a performer or as a educator. Do you have a favorite musical moment that you can reflect on?
There's been a lot of them, moments that is.
Right,
Some
right.
good, some bad. To me, as an instructor, to be honest, one of my favorite things was one of the indoor shows that I did in, I think it was 2002 with RCC. It was called The Sound of Silence.
Mhm.
And it was an indoor show that we did about if a deaf person could experience marching percussion in a gym. And we actually had this deaf girl from Riverside, deaf school, Riverside community down there in Riverside, and she actually came on board with us. And she was, we had a narrator, and she did sign language. And that was one of the most rewarding shows that I've ever been a part of. And the cool thing was, because it was years afterwards, talking to some of my peers and some of the guys that I know through the drum corps and indoor world, they're going, she was a great actress, and I'm going, what? I go, no, that was real. They go, what do you mean? I'm going, no, it wasn't an acting job. It was, it was funny because the first time we met with her, Holly was her name. And I talked to the school and talked to their, is this a good thing to do, or should I not do this? I didn't want to insult anybody.
Right.
I thought it'd be real fascinating to have this experience. So they introduced me to Holly, and she's standing in front of the RCC drum line, and we're in the gym. And I go, okay, I'm through an interpreter, because I didn't know sign language, through an interpreter. I'm just going to have the guys play some stuff. And I just wanted for her to tell me if she feels anything, if she could sense anything, whatever. And the first thing was I just had the snares play like a roll exercise. And she goes, it just feels fuzzy. And I go, yeah, it's dirty. You got it right. And then I had the tenors play something, and she could feel that a little bit better because she could, the lower tones, and she could also just watch it. And she goes, well, that looks really cool. That looks like a lot of fun. And then I had the bass. As soon as the bass drummer started playing, you see her eyes just went like that, and she felt
Wow.
it. So we wrote the music around that. We definitely wrote the music around how she experiences that.
That's incredible.
And so it was real rewarding. And the best, we won WGI that year with the gold medal, but I'd tell you the best thing was the following, it was like 2 or 3 weeks after WGI, we actually played at the Riverside School for the Deaf. And they brought all their students in. And so here, okay, now, boom.
Right.
But they're experiencing the same thing. And to me, that was just like, that was off the charts.
I love hearing that. I think that's like all of us are looking for those moments. You're kind of hunting for those moments. And it's impossible to recreate it because it's all about that exact time, those people that lead up into the thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that just happened. Exactly.
Well, and to me, the funny thing for me was, here's some amazing drummers that we had in that group. There are a lot of the Blue Devil kids, had some Santa Clara kids. Here's this summer drumming gurus that showed up to do the indoor thing before the independent world thing was that even, that popular as it is now.
Right.
All of a sudden, here's these hands. We got this group of hands that are friggin' amazing. And all the critiques with all the judges who are my friends who I've known through drum corps and through whatever, they're going, oh my God, the concept's great. Oh my God. Yeah. And I'm going, have you heard them play? Is anybody going to talk about how? Because you really got to listen to what they're playing too.
Right.
They were so good, but it just kind of like got blown away because the whole concept was just so different. It was to me, that was comical. The guys in line are going, what about us? What about, do they?
Well, because that's become its whole a separate thing now. There's so much you can get into it, the concept that honestly, it's like, how are you judging, concept and hands and that like kind of battle between how do you adjudicate and balance out those ideas. Yeah, it's incredible.
Absolutely.
Well,
and,
awesome.
A memory as a performer, I marched in the Blue Devil snare line for many, many years. Well, for 4 years. And, but literally recently I've been doing a thing once a year where I perform with the Tommy Igoe Big Band. Tommy Igoe was in drum corps, marching Bayonne Bridgman. I've known him for years through Vic Firth back when we had Signature 6. I knew him at a lot of the get-togethers that we've had at the Vic Firth place. And Tommy moved to California and started the big band. And literally it's like the best musicians in the Bay Area. And they get together like on a Tuesday or Wednesday night at this jazz club and just throw down, because on the weekends they're doing a real job somewhere. So he used to do this in New York too all the time. So my wife and I, whenever we're in New York, we had to go Friday night to make sure we would go watch Tommy play, before they got to go do their real gig at Lion King and all the Broadway shows.
Right.
So when Tommy moved out to the West Coast and started doing the same thing, and I took the Blue Devil drum line to the shows. I paid, my wife and I, we paid for the tickets. I go, I want you guys to watch clean music being performed and they're having a really good time.
Awesome.
And Tommy would always give props for drum corps because that's where he started, so it was good for the guys to hear that. And so we did this for a couple of years. And then one year talking with Tommy and he's going, well, why don't you should play with me on stage. And I'm going, play what? He goes, snare drum. And it's like, huh. We don't play snare drum with a big band. So the first time we did this, which was, I want to say 9 years ago, there's a club called Yoshi's. And again, I haven't performed in a long time. I play on video, I could do some stuff on video and do some licks here and there, but that's all good. You could, up, no, not that take, up, not that take.
Right.
I haven't done a live performance literally in a long time. Every now and then a PAS I play a little bit, but nothing like this where I'm going to be on stage sitting there for, 45 minutes playing some songs. And there's no rehearsals. We just get up and it's all just, let's have a good time and let's improv. So I'm at the first show. The rehearsal was literally like 10 minutes before the show. We got together with just the rhythm section just to talk about a few transitions and some of the songs we're going to play. Okay, Scott, you'll solo there, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do it. Okay, ready? All right, let's have a good time. It's like, just deer in the headlights. So the band's on stage. They play for like 45 minutes by themselves before they bring me on stage. And I'm backstage at this club called Yoshi's, and I'm pacing the hallway. And, and they got TV screens. So I'm watching the band, I'm listening to them, and I'm looking at the exit door. And I'm going, I could just leave. I could just bail,
Right.
leave a note. Sorry, I got sick. Something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was so nervous. It was terrible. I mean, I just everything. I couldn't do anything. I'm going, oh my God. And I pumped it up and I stayed in. I didn't leave. And so when Tommy called me up on stage, I finally get up on stage. And I remember being real nervous walking through the curtain. And I sit down when I got my snare drum, and he's like right next to me in his drum set. And I looked at him, and he's got this big smile saying, "We're just going to have fun. Let's have some fun." And all of a sudden, boom, it wasn't about performing. It wasn't about nerves. It was like, I'm going to drum with my buddy, and the performance was great. I felt real good about it. And it was like, it kind of set up. We're doing it like, this would have been the 9th year we've done it. But obviously with this, there's not too many.
Right.
You couldn't do it. But so that one performance for me was like, that was like an eye opener as far as it was. It was just such a good time, just not thinking about the audience, not thinking about the lights, just playing with my friend.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing too. I mean, you've been playing for so long that, you hope that you can just find the rhythm and just get back into it and mentally just go, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that. And I mean, I've been there too, where it's like, I've played for so many years, and for whatever reason, something will get up in there right before the gig, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not used to this. I'm getting a little bit of the shakes, or this will happen. And then all of a sudden you start to play and you're like, oh, okay, I'm back. Here I am.
Right. That's when I get in the comfort zone when my hands are moving, then it's like, okay, now I'm relaxed.
Right.
What's funny is the second year I did it, again, it was real successful. And I mean, I stocked the room, with all the Blue Devil kids. So I got an audience.
That's awesome. I love it.
And they know that they got to clap for me. If not, I'm going to yell at them next day at rehearsal. So, but I remember we finished. We're back in the green room after the show, and Tommy's sitting there, and he's high-fiving. He goes, "That was great." I'm going, man, I screwed up that one thing. I wanted to do this lick. And he just looked at me and he goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I made like 4 mistakes." And he goes, "This isn't drum corps." And he literally lit me up.
Wow.
What? You know how many mistakes I make? He goes, "It's all about making mistakes, man. It doesn't matter. It's having fun. It's what we do." And it totally just went, oh my God, this isn't drum corps. This isn't the perfect 11-minute show that we have to work. This is just about guys having fun drumming. And that literally changed my whole outlook for every year after that. It's like, we're just going to have a good time, and whatever happens, happens.
That's incredible. I love that lesson. I mean, that's something I wish more people could hear, that, because sometimes you get so wound up that you don't enjoy any of it because you're just so nervous about making a mistake.
Yep, exactly. And that's what it was. That was me. I mean, I was in my drum corps mode still,
Right.
And especially we did the show in early June when we just doing our all-day rehearsals with Blue Devil. So I'm definitely in my drum corps mode.
Right,
so
right.
I want to go up there, and I can't make a mistake, because that's what I preach every day. I can't go up there and make a mistake in front of my guys.
Right.
But it was Tommy who just kind of went, he goes, "Nobody cares if you make a mistake. That's what we do."
Yeah.
You laugh it off, you have a good time, you do it again.
No, I mean,
that was huge, a huge lesson.
That's awesome. Well, that kind of bridges into the next question. So, I mean, we all get into ruts, and we all kind of have seasons where sometimes it's working really well, and then there's sometimes it's like nothing we seem to do works the way we want it to. Do you have like I don't know, like a quote or somebody that you kind of leaned on, or like what is something that you could share that helped kind of pull you out of a rut?
I have a quote that I've used for many things, and it was at the end of every years ago. I did this thing called Skojo's Lick of the Week, which was all these different 1-minute, 2-minute licks. And at the very end, I always said the same thing. And I got it from my father, who told me, whatever you do in a career, and his line was basically, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And so find something that you enjoy doing. And so whenever things get rough or tough or things aren't going well, I keep thinking about, look what we're doing. First of all, we're in music. I mean, how cool is that? Whether it's good or bad or whatever, people are paying money to come watch us play. So
right.
It's like, this is a pretty cool job. And I try to make it as fun as possible for the members, because, my line always is, if you think about, an 8 on a hand exercise that every drum line plays, at every level from junior high up into the world-class groups, you play some form of a legato stroke to start warming up your muscles. How many times do you play that in a season? And my God, it better be fun. If you're not having fun, that's going to be really boring.
Yeah, right.
So we always try to make sure we have a good time, whether it's a joke or whether it's, messing around with the exercises or changing something up or whatever. But I always have that mentality. If you're not having fun, we're doing it wrong. So when it becomes not
great.
fun, that's when I stop. Everybody set them down. We're doing this wrong.
Yep.
So let's figure out how to make this better now. So
yeah, that's awesome
advice.
I've always
lived with that. Yeah, I've always lived with that.
That's great advice. All right, so here's the next one. If your current you could tell your 20-year-old version of yourself, what would you say? If there's one thing you could give advice to yourself about.
Wow. Okay, we're getting deep now, and good one. Stay in school. Okay. I never got a degree. I went to a junior college for 2 years right out of high school. This was back in the 70s. And back then I was going to be a band director. That was my plan because that's what everybody did that was in music back then. There wasn't that, the opportunities weren't, that was the only thing that kind of existed at that time. And I was going to be a band director. And then a lot of it was election time. And this one Proposition 13, I'll never forget that, came through California. And it was cutting all the arts programs, firing band directors left and right. And I was teaching drum lines for different high schools at the time, right out of high school. And when I was right out of high school, and I was making as much, if not more money at that time than some of the band directors that I knew that were getting fired. And I didn't get fired because I was paid through the booster clubs, through bingo. And the guys who had their degrees were getting paid through the school district. They were losing their jobs, which I thought that's completely backwards. It's completely stupid. And then I also went, well, then why am I in school? Why am I doing this? I'm doing better. So that's one of my regrets is if I could go back and, slap myself and say, stick it out. Because I wish I would have. I really wish I would have gone through school. And, I'm sure I would be a better educator and definitely a better performer and, play more than just paradiddles, I'm sure. But it's one of the things that if I could go tell my 20-year-old self that's exactly what I'd tell them.
No, I love the idea that you could constantly better yourself. I mean, I'm talking to the world premier, world-class educator right in front of me right now, and he's still saying, I wish I could do this better, which for me is a great lesson because it's just that no matter what you do, there's a higher level of excellence. I love it.
Always. Yeah.
Right.
As soon as we get complacent or think that we're at the top or that we got nothing else to learn, someone's going to pass you by and say, see ya.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole, shelter in place we've been doing, I've been on Zoom, I've been on YouTube, I've been watching as many different performances and things that I can just to try to learn more, to try to figure out some other stuff, so always learning.
Oh, awesome. I love it. So I have one last question. Anything new, any projects or new things you're sharing with anybody at this point? Is there anything new coming down the pipeline?
There's a couple things, especially coming up here real soon. The Blue Devil drumline, the 2020 drumline, which is not going to be able to perform live, but I do have them doing this thing called Hack. We call it the Hack Fest. And we've already had Hack Fest #1, which was a couple weeks ago. And Hack Fest 2 is this weekend. It's this Sunday, June 28th. And then we got Hack Fest 3, and then we're doing a finals version when DCI finals would have been in August. But what we're doing is we're having the individual sections compete. It's like a virtual competitive season. So
awesome.
Snares versus tenors versus the bass drums. The front ensemble splits up into a couple different groups sometimes, or sometimes they'll play something together. But it's all about, first of all, just keeping them communicating, keeping them drumming, keeping them motivated. Right. And the first one was pretty cool. And the second one, which is this weekend, I haven't seen anything yet, so I'm really excited to see that. And I'm not sure what that's going to be, but for all the people out there, if you get a chance to check it, it's on the Blue Devil social pages and the website. It's called Hackfest. And the other thing that I've been doing, I've been working on my next book. I've had obviously time to kind of hang out here. So I got a couple books out. There's a book called Progression, which I don't have a copy of here, which is kind of crazy. But it's 15 different snare solos that I've written, and it's a progression of basic snare solos to extremely difficult by the 15th one. I put this book out a while ago called Chops, and Roloff is selling it. And it's basically how I developed my chops from literally when I was 4 years old to what I still do today, with a lot of different exercises and some snare solos and stuff in there. And then I really got crazy, and there was a phenomenal book out that I'm sure most people know about, Portraits in Rhythm by Anthony Cerrone. which was the Bible in the 70s for us snare drummers in the Bay Area. You know, Santa Clara Vanguard guys and the Blue Devil guys, everybody had that book because we lived out of it. I mean, that was like the stuff. And so I wanted to try to, years ago, I go, God, there's got to be something of more modern vocabulary now to be able to do something like that. So I put out a book called Rhythms of Music that I did.
That's great.
It's more for concert snare, but it could be for anything, obviously. And this is volume 1. And volume 2, I'm just starting to finish up now. So that's what I've been working on for the last few weeks. So, take a look at them, guys. Roll Off Productions have them. And got some good stuff in there, some good challenges in there for a lot of our vocabulary that we're trying to do nowadays.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been an honor to speak with you, and I bid you farewell.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. Talk soon.
Greetings again, everyone. We just wanted to take a second to say thank you to Seif Studios for their creative media. If you want to find out more about Seif Studios, look them up on www.seifstudios.com. We'd also like to say thank you to our educational partner, ProLogix Percussion, American-made drum pads. They're doing a special discount code for our listeners today. So if you go to www.prologixpercussion.com and type in TWT20, you will receive 20% off your entire order. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and please check out our supporters.